This is going to be your glazing video, and glazing is really pretty straightforward. After you have your piece of ceramic bisque fired, then you are going to paint or dip or pour glaze on there.
All right, we have two different types of glaze in this class. We have high fire glazes that are better for more functional pieces that you're going to eat out of, and we also have low fire glazes which give you more color variety, and they're better for more decorative pieces. It's really important that you look at the color chart on the wall, because when you paint it on, the color is not the same as what it's going to be like after it's fired. There are two types of glazes here, translucent and opaque. Translucent, you can see through, you're going to see the clay body. Opaque is going to cover it completely, and you're not going to see through that color of glaze.
Yeah. And glaze is basically pulverized glass and color it. And when it's in a container and it's been sitting for a while, the glass and the colorant goes to the bottom, and at the top all you have is water. So if you went to glaze with this and dipped your brush in and started painting, all you'd have is water. So you have to stir these things. A couple ways to stir it. My favorite with these small ones is, because my hand's big enough, I just shake it like this. Sometimes
You can use the back of a paintbrush, open it up, and just really stir it up that way. And especially some of the glazes that have crystals in them, they really sit at the bottom, and you really want to stir that up well.
So the one thing you do not want to do is hold the container like this and shake it. In a minute, I'm going to put on lots of protective clothing, and I'm going to show you why you don't want to do that. All right, let's try some glazing. We're going to take a bowl. Easiest and best way to get the inside all covered with glaze is actually to pour. I've already done this, the glaze, so it's all stirred up, and now I'm going to pour it inside of my bowl. And you go, oh, but that's going to look like a mess. Well, I'm going to now take it and take the excess glaze and pour it out. The advantage of doing it this way is I will get the best coat, most even coat. When you're painting, you often have to do at least 2, sometimes 3 or more coats in order to get all of the surface covered. And in this case, if oh man, I might make it. Anyhow, that's how you pour.
So, I've already shaken up my glaze. I'm going to show you how to paint or brush on your glaze on the outside. So now that it's all completely shaken up, I'm going to dip in my brush and just paint it on with the brush. And you need to get a good 2 layers on there. If they're really thin, you might even need 3. Or if you have the crystals, you add the crystal part last.
And that's one of the advantages of pouring. When you pour it, more glaze gets absorbed in, but when you paint it, often it's fairly thin, so you have to do it several times.
And then you want to, it's going to, as you're doing the bottom part, it's going to get all over around the foot or the bottom. And so let's just pretend I'm all cleaned up. Get a nice damp sponge, and I'm going to clean up not only the complete bottom of the piece, but up about 1/8 of an inch. If you're really paranoid, you could go up to 1/4 inch, because that glaze will melt down a little bit while it's in the kiln. So you want to make sure it doesn't stick to the kiln shelf. So when you're done glazing, you need to make sure you clean off any glaze that's on the outside of the bottle, and put the lid back on nice and tight. Make sure that it's not going to fall off. Place it back in the correct spot, so you check the number and the name against all these, and just clean up any other mess you've made and put things back where you found them.
You see, I've got myself prepared for this next demonstration. Don't try this in the classroom, and don't try it at home. But if you have a bottle of glaze and you're working with it, and the person before you didn't put the lid on very tight, and then you shake this thing without your hand over the top, this is what happens. And you don't want that to happen, okay? All right, here we are at the high fire glazes, and very similar to the low fire glazes. It's the same kind of mixture. When you have a container like this, You need to make sure you shake it with it covered. Don't shake it open. You know what a mess that can make. Every semester that seems to happen. And then this is the one container where you get to dip. And as you look inside and see this, you'll see how it's separated. You can really see the separation well. And after it's dipped and it comes out and it dries,
you can actually paint other things on it. The important thing to know with any of our glazes is that the colors are going to be a little bit different than what they look like when they're wet, and they don't mix the way paints or other pigments do. So typically you don't mix them up. We sometimes paint over this, and you just have to be willing to kind of roll with it and experiment. But we do have a little bit of a color chart to give you an idea of what they're going to come out like. But again, we're going to shake these up real well and make sure that the lid is covered.
yeah.
Just paint over it. So some people actually like to just paint along the edge and then let it drip down. So it doesn't have to be an actual design, but you could.
Yeah.
But remember, it's going to melt a little bit, so don't give it too many details.
And when you're painting with these high fire glazes, painting the top part is safe. When you start painting over something dipped on the lower part, you've already got one coat of glaze or two, then it's going to get pretty thick. That's when you get the chances of running. So if you're painting the outside, do the top. The inside you're safer painting on.
And as with any piece, you always want to make sure you clean the bottom of it and get all that glaze at least 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. Anywhere where it might touch the kiln shelf needs to be wiped clean, or it ends up on the shelf of shame, and you don't
Yeah,
want
we
that.
don't want that. No. Yeah. So that's glazing. Have fun with it. Be colorful and creative, and that's the end of this video.